Hey guys, wearing a mask today because I don't want to expose my cameraman, so we're going to talk about construction, tips and tricks and techniques, like how to build a good, strong bridge. In your student guide, they talk a little bit about the different types of joints that we use, especially in wood construction, and they talk about the miter joint, which is that. It's usually 245s in general. Not always, but it's often 245-degree angles. The butt joint would just be where you take a piece and you just butt it right into there. And that's actually the weakest joint. We'll talk about why in a minute. And then they talk about the different types of notched joints. So that would be where you have a groove or a notch in one board, and then the other board would slide right into it. And so it's got mechanical strength besides just the glue. I'm not going to say it'd be impossible to do a notch joint on these little timbers, but it would be exceedingly difficult. And so I don't recommend that you even try it. We're mostly going to do miter joints and butt joints. And so now I want to talk about why the butt joint, and we're talking about just glue because we're not using mechanical fasteners. We're not using screws or nails or tenons or bolts, anything like that. We're just using glue. And the reason is because of the nature of the material. This is wood, and it was formerly a living organic thing. So I'm going to have the drag spin around and look at, this is just a slice out of a pecan tree. And so this is how it grew. The roots would have been down here in the ground, and then it would have gone up to the canopy where all the branches and leaves are. And you can actually see evidence here. This slab, it got wet. It was sitting in some water, and you can see there's rings where some dirt, I guess there was dirt in the water or minerals or something, and it left kind of like a high water mark. And that's because there are minerals and water that comes out of the ground, and it needs to get up into the leaves. And then the leaves produce sugars that then need to get back down into the rest of the tree. So there's like these tubes, these little tiny tubes inside the wood. And that's what happens with end grain. So here I've just got a little block of white oak. And here's a little party trick that you can do. I just get the end of the block damp. It doesn't have to be soaking wet. And then just put a little bit of dish soap on the end. It goes down into the end grain. And then you can actually just blow on it with your mouth and bubbles will actually come out. But I'm not going to do that to drag, so I'm going to use an air hose. But try it. If you have access to a piece of wood, try it. You can blow on it. And so we're just going to take this compressed air. So that's why if you put glue on end grain, most of it actually will soak into the wood. So that butt joints by themselves are rather weak. So with a miter joint, it's not pure end grain. It's you're starting to kind of cut a little bit into side grain. And also this is longer because it's the hypotenuse of a triangle, so that's a bit longer. And then side grain, if you can glue side grain, that's a much stronger bond that way. And then of course if you can glue face grain together, that's the best. And a lot of that's because of the surface area, but it's also just the way the cells are inside the wood. Alright, now I want to show you how to start building your truss. So what I start with the longest pieces first. And I just, I take a full stick and I'll put it on my drawing and I'll just mark it, cut it, and then I pin it into place. And notice how I use the T-pins, and I kind of crossed them like an X, and so it's tight. Like that doesn't really want to move. And I did the same thing on the top. And now I'm going to just do a couple diagonals for you here. And this is a scrap. And that angle isn't quite right, so I'm just going to lay it on there. And then you can just eyeball this, and then you just mark the correct angle, and then you cut it. I'm going to put that where it's going to go. And I didn't do that very well. Recut that. That's better. And then I just eyeball it where I want to cut it, make a little mark. Now here's how I recommend you apply your glue. Just put a little puddle, maybe the size of a dime, and then you just, as you need more, just get more. And then just dip the timber in the glue. That's it, and then you just want to pin it in place. So again, I kind of like the X method. Just make sure there's light pressure. You want a little bit of pressure, like holding those pieces together. And this one isn't going to be quite long enough, so I'm going to take a new one, lay it over the top, make a mark. Glue. And then that's it. You just continue and just do, I would just be steady about this. Meaning, if you find this very tedious and stressful, just do like 3 or 4 and walk away, and then come back later and do some more. But I would don't put it off. Just keep it steady. Work on it a little bit every day, and before you know it, it'll turn out just like that. And I have to say, now don't crush it, but you can actually feel how amazingly stiff and strong that is compared to just the timbers by themselves. I mean, these are just like noodles. But in a truss system, that's actually, you can just feel that it's got some strength. So don't test it too dramatically because you'll break it, but you can put a little pressure on there and feel that it's like, that's actually pretty darn strong. All right guys, have fun. We'll talk about it more during live time. See ya.